In just 2 games, Brown and Tatum have combined to shoot a dismal 27 for 84 from the field. That's a rough 32% clip. On top of that, they've racked up 16 turnovers between them, which accounts for over 55% of Boston's total giveaways in this series. Simply put, the Knicks defense has completely neutralized one of the most dynamic duos in the entire NBA. And at the center of that defensive masterclass was OG Anunoby. Whether it's pick-and-roll coverage, ISO possessions, or help-side rotations, OG has been everywhere this series, suffocating Tatum and Brown at every turn. His presence has been a nightmare for the Celtics stars and a key reason why their offensive rhythm has fallen apart. New York's game plan has been airtight. On any pick-and-roll involving Brunson, the Knicks consistently had him hedge, while the primary defender fought over the screen to recover. The goal was to avoid switching and keep Brunson out of ISOs against either Tatum or Brown. But when the screen involved a big, whether it was Towns or Mitchell Robinson, the Knicks were comfortable switching, trusting their size and mobility to hold up in one-on-one matchups. And that strategy paid off in a big way. Just in Game 1 alone, Tatum ran 17 pick-and-roll actions, and out of those 17 possessions, only 4 ended up as a bucket. In fact, some of those buckets came on possessions where the Knicks played really great defense. Tatum simply made even better shots. Meanwhile, 4 of the remaining 13 possessions ended as a turnover. So what about Game 2? Well, it was more of the same, only with a slight twist. Rather than targeting Brunson in pick and rolls, Tatum shifted his focus to the Knicks' big men. Why? Because New York was willingly switching, allowing their bigs to defend Tatum one-on-one. But even with that strategic change, Tatum still couldn't capitalize. He consistently failed to exploit those mismatches. And credit where it's due, both bigs held their ground. But it was Mitchell Robinson who truly stood out. Most fans might not realize this, but Robinson wasn't just an elite pick-and-roll defender during the regular season. He was also one of the best ISO stoppers in the league. Sure, he only played 14 games, but when he was on the floor, his impact was undeniable. Robinson allowed just 0.72 points per possession defending the pick and roll, ranking in the top 7% league-wide and the best mark among all Knicks players in that category. In ISO, he was even stingier, surrendering only 0.64 points per possession, putting him in the top 10% for ISO defense. Again, the best on the Knicks. That kind of defensive versatility is exactly what New York missed in their regular season matchups against Boston, and it's exactly what they're now using to slow down Tatum in this series. So far in their playoff series against the Celtics, Robinson's presence has been a game changer for the Knicks defense. In both Game 1 and Game 2, no player posted a higher plus-minus than Robinson. In Game 1, he outpaced the next best player by 5 points. Then, in Game 2, he blew that gap wide open, posting a plus-minus that was a staggering 10 points higher than anyone else on the floor. That alone should tell you how influential he's been, and all of this while logging just 40 minutes across the 2 games. Let's not forget, the Celtics even resorted to a hack-a-Mitchell strategy at times, hoping to exploit his free throw shooting. But despite that, Robinson anchored a collective effort that completely disrupted Boston's offensive rhythm, especially in the second half of both games. But it wasn't just Robinson turning the screws. There's already a growing narrative that Tatum has been settling for way too many threes in this series, and honestly, there's some truth to that. He's shooting just 25% from deep so far. But before we rush to judgment, let's dive into a few clips. Once you see how great the Knicks have been with their individual defense, you'll start to understand why he's been forced into those shots. In this first play, Tatum is one-on-one against Bridges. He tries to back him down, but Bridges absorbs the contact, holds his ground, doesn't bite on the fake, and contests the shot perfectly, resulting in a miss. Next, Robinson switches onto Tatum on a pick and roll. Tatum tries to beat him off the dribble but can't get by, so he settles for a fadeaway jumper. Robinson gets a strong contest on it, and again, it's off the mark. Then it's Towns matched up with Tatum in ISO. Once more, Tatum goes for the drive, but Towns stays in front. With no advantage gained, Tatum pulls up for another fadeaway. Same result, another miss. These clips are all from Game 2, but you could easily find similar sequences in Game 1. The point here is clear. Tatum has struggled to gain separation on ISOs throughout the series. He hasn't been able to consistently beat his defenders off the dribble, whether it's Bridges, Robinson, or Towns, and let's not even bring up OG. That's why we're seeing him and the Celtics as a whole lean more heavily on three-point attempts, especially in ISO situations. They simply aren't getting the edge they need inside the arc. And that's exactly what the Knicks want. Force Boston into tough, contested threes rather than giving up easier looks in the paint. During the regular season, Tatum ranked as the second worst three-point shooter on the Celtics among players averaging at least 20 minutes per game. And if you're wondering who held the bottom spot, that would be Jaylen Brown. The Knicks had clearly done their homework on Brown, and by Game 2, they unveiled a very specific strategy. Anytime Brown looked to drive left, a help defender would rotate over, usually OG, either doubling him or swiping at the ball to force a turnover. And it worked. 3 of OG's 4 steals in Game 2 came from cutting off Brown's left-hand drives. This wasn't just a random adjustment, it was a calculated escalation from Game 1. In that first matchup, Brown's primary defender was Josh Hart. Now, while Brown didn't have the most efficient night overall, shooting just 35% from the field, he was far more effective when matched up directly against Hart, going 50% in those head-to-head situations. That small window of success didn't go unnoticed by the Knicks coaching staff. So, in Game 2, they tightened the screws. The help came quicker, the rotations sharper, and even though Brown remained efficient in ISO against Hart, hitting 4 of his 5 shots, the pressure elsewhere took a toll. The Knicks forced 4 turnovers on Brown's left-hand drives alone in Game 2, with 3 of those coming while he was being guarded by Hart. Compare that to just 1 forced turnover in Game 1, and the impact of the adjustment becomes crystal clear. But one player who absolutely deserves recognition, especially on the defensive end in both games, is Brunson. We already touched on his pick-and-roll defense earlier, but what really stood out was how he held his own in ISO against both Tatum and Brown. Across the 2 games, they combined to shoot just 3 for 8 when guarded by Brunson. Now, that stat might not blow you away at first glance, but considering how often the Celtics have tried to target Brunson in their regular season matchups, it's a major statement. In fact, Brunson hasn't exactly lit it up offensively in this series. He's shooting just 15 for 42 from the field, which is far from the standard we've come to expect from him. But where he's fallen short on one end, he's more than made up for it on the other. Defensively, Brunson has stepped up in a big way, and the Knicks have needed every bit of it, especially against a Celtics squad that thrives on isolating and attacking the weakest link. And for a player who's often seen as a defensive mismatch, limiting 2 All-Stars to inefficient looks speaks volumes. The Celtics clearly came in with a plan to exploit Brunson in Games 1 and 2, but that plan hasn't quite worked out. So now the question is, what adjustments will Boston make moving forward? With the Knicks heading back to Madison Square Garden holding a 2-0 lead, one more win could just about seal the deal. And until then, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all your support, and I can't wait to dive into more film with you next time.
Tatum maneuvering. Oh, the ball knocked away. Another great defensive play for the Knicks. They've got it. They've won it. New York has gone up 2 games tonight.